Guys, today I want to show you the very basics of knitting in hopefully under 8 minutes. So you're only going to need two things to get you started. You're going to need your yarn and you're going to need your needle. So the first thing you do when you go to a store, you take a look at your yarn. You pick up the yarn that you want and then you take a look at the characteristics. So on every label, you'll see this little square. This tells you what type of needles are recommended. So this is for a hook for crocheting, this is for needles. This is recommended 5.5 millimeters or US size 9. So you grab a needle. Now you don't need a whole kit. You only need one set. US 9, 5.5. I already have mine. I prefer to work with these circular needles, but you only need 2 needles. So you can take the wire off, or if you only have 2 needles, just a little bit longer, that's all you need. So don't worry about the type of needles. Just use whatever is more comfortable. So as you see, this one is US size 9, 5.5 millimeters. So this square also gives you information, a little bit of information on the sizing. So you should never skip the math whenever, unless it's a scarf, right? So when you are doing a sweater or any type of clothing, you're gonna need to do some calculations, and people knit differently. So my 10 by 10 centimeter square can look differently from your 10 by 10 centimeter square. This is an average. So this suggests that in the 10 by 10 centimeter square, you are going to need 17 stitches and 23 rows. So we're gonna cast on 17 stitches and we're gonna do 23 rows, and it will give us a 10 by 10 centimeter square. And then from that, we can do calculations for this particular yarn using these particular needles. Now, you can use different size needles. It's just that your yarn is going to be, your square is going to be a little bit tighter. Sometimes if you go bigger, it's going to be a little bit looser. So if you're just starting and you need suggestions, this is what you get. You get 5.5 needles or whatever suggested on your yarn, and you get your yarn. Let's get going. Guys, the first thing you're going to do is we're going to cast on our stitches, and you are going to need a little bit of yarn. How much to measure from the end for the short end. The rule of thumb, it's usually 3 times the fold of what you need in the end. So if we need 10 centimeters, we go 1, we go 2, we go 3. This is how much we're gonna need. I give it a little bit more because it's easier to just cut the thread than to redo the cast on. Okay, so I'm gonna put the 2 needles together like this. I'm gonna grab my short end, I'm gonna grab my long end, I'm just gonna put it over my fingers like this, and I'm gonna start making some loops. So casting on, you go from the top, you pick up this loop, and you go to this loop. This is the first one. Other one's slightly different. So you have your knot like this already. You go, follow your thumb, and then through the index finger and pull. Make it tight. So we have 2 needles. We need to make it tight. Again, we go from your thumb, index, through the thumb. From the thumb, through index, and pull. We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. All done. So we have just cast on 17 stitches. We have our short end, we have our long end. Okay, I'm gonna take 1 needle out now. And now I'm going to show you how to do a knit stitch. So there are 2 types of stitches we're gonna do today, a knit and a purl. We're gonna start with a knit. The first thing you do is you always just take off the first stitch of the row. Always, always. Every time you start a row, we're gonna take off a stitch. Now I'm gonna show you how to do a knit. So your loop has your front side and your back side. You grab the back side and then you pull the thread through the yarn, sorry. You grab the back like this and you pull this through. Grab the back, pull. grab the back, pull, grab the back, pull, grab the back, pull, grab the back, pull. Now there are different ways of doing this also, but I'm not going to show this to you today. I'm going to show it in a different video. Just remember that this is only for knitting something not in a circle, okay? Circle, you need to grab the front of the stitch, not the back. Okay, we are coming to the end of the row. The last stitch of the row is always a purl. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is show you how to do a purl. So you grab your yarn and you kind of move it to the front of the needle, and then you go inside of the loop, and then you pull the yarn through here. I'm gonna show you more. Now we're gonna rotate our work. Again, the first one is always off, always, just slip it off. Now I'm putting my yarn in front of my needle, and then I'm going inside of my loop, inside of my stitch, and I'm pulling it from the back like this. Inside, inside, and through. Inside and through. Inside and through. Side and through. My last stitch is coming a little bit loose. That's okay. That's gonna happen when you're just starting your rows. Again, the last one is always purl. Always, always. Doesn't matter if you're doing a knit row or a pull row. It's always purl. Okay. So we have 3 of our rows. We have our cast on row, we have our knit row, and we have the row that we did as a purl on the back side. So you'll see on the back side, we only have purls. And then on the front, we always have knits. So in order to have all knit at the front, you go on your face side, you go knit, and then on the back side, you always go purl. Those are the basics. We're gonna explore all different kinds later on in this channel. So in order for us to get 23 rows according to our yarn for a 10 by 10 centimeter square, we just continue doing the same thing over and over again. Now this one is going to be a knit row. We're going to take off the first one. We're going to go in between inside of our stitch, and we're going to pull from the back, pull from the back. Guys, you can just rewind to where I started the row, the second row, and just repeat the same thing until you have 23 rows. It's easy to count. I kind of count on the back side. That's a little bit easier for me. So you just twist, and then you count the first row, second, third, fourth. We're on the 4th row right now. I'm gonna pause the video and I'm gonna come back to you when I have my 23 rows. Okay, my friends, we did 22 rows. So if you count from the back or the front, whatever is easier for you, we are just about to start row 23, and this is going to be our cast off row. So it doesn't matter which side you're doing, whether you're doing knit or you're doing purl, the method is the same. So you're going to take the first one off, the first stitch off. Then you're going to do a purl. For me, it's a purl. And then you're going to take this purl and loop it out of the first stitch. Okay, so we're going to do it a couple more times together. So you're doing a regular purl. You should have 2 stitches on your non-working needle. You take this needle and you loop it through, you take this stitch, and you loop it through the stitch that you just made. Again, you have 2 stitches. You take this one and you loop it through. This is called casting off. You'll see it's starting to show like this. So if you're doing a knit row, you can just do a knit stitch and you just loop it through that. I'm doing a purl, so you should always have two, and then you loop it like this. Okay, we're almost done. Just a couple more. Oops. Sometimes you can just use your nail or your finger to help you a little bit. Okay, the last one is always purl. Loop it through. I have to fight with my yarn sometimes. Okay, this is the last one, and you're gonna give it a little bit of a larger loop. I'm gonna cut this off. That's it. So our square is ready. It's a little bit rolled up. I'm gonna go actually iron it so that it lies flat, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. Okay guys, so I have my square. Let's validate that what I have is the same that the label has. So our cast off and cast on rows are gonna be a little tight sometimes, but let's take it and measure it. Okay, so this is actually pretty good. That's pretty close to 10, right? Sometimes if you measure in the middle, that's gonna be exactly 10. It's gonna be exactly 10, very close. And then 23 rows actually gave me 11. So I'm gonna need to adjust my calculations. We're not gonna worry about calculations today. We're gonna cover that later. I do have to say that for me, this feels a little bit loose. So I would actually, for anything that I do, well, specifically for a project I have in mind, this feels a little bit too light, a little bit too holy. Like there's too much hole in there. So I would actually do another square with smaller needles. But it's all up to you. However you like it, you can experiment. You can take larger needles, smaller needles to make sure that this feels right to you for the project that you are going to be doing. In the next video, we are going to be doing a scarf. I'll show you how to do a scarf so you have all the skills to do a scarf now, and then we're going to do some more complicated projects later on. See you later.